Hello and good afternoon, Xbox Nation. Welcome to today's special edition episode of the Xbox Factor podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Mr. Boomstick XL, and holy F, has this been a Monday of Mondays? You can hear the excitement in my voice. My goodness, has the biggest bomb of 2020 been dropped by Microsoft, more specifically Xbox Wire and Phil Spencer. But helping me break down today's exciting news is none other than my other co-host, Zemi Games. Welcome, dude. I know you have a lot to say. Thank you so much for joining.
Well, thank you so much for setting up this show that I had no idea was even going to happen up until 2 hours ago. Super excited. It's almost like E3 came early, right?
Yes.
So I can't wait to dive into this and into the podcast and talk about all the different things that we now know to be 100% confirmed.
Yes, absolutely. Well, listen, in what is going to be considered by many in the community the biggest news of 2020, Xbox Wire just published an article that says what you can expect from the next generation of gaming for Xbox. And the author is none other than Phil Dominus Maximus Spencer. Now, in this show-stopping article, he confirms that the Xbox Series X is indeed 12 teraflops of power. But he also confirms some other specs of the console that we heard rumors of, but no confirmation up until now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, the line has been drawn in the sand. And without sounding like a complete alarmist, I'm going to say this. I think Sony is in a bit of trouble. The silent act that they have been doing for their fans of the past few months looks like it kind of bit them in the ass. And Phil Spencer has taken full advantage of their silence. Now, this article is big. So in order for us to make sense of it, I'm just going to read the opening parts from Phil Spencer, and then we're going to discuss it, and we'll break down the rest of the confirmed information for Series X. And I'm going to read directly from the article that was posted only a couple of hours ago. And it says this: the future of gaming has never been more inspiring. Creativity in games is flourishing. New services empower you to discover more games and bring you closer to the games and creators and streamers you love. The cloud creates a massive opportunity to stream console quality games and play with the people you want, wherever you want. And for many of us, nothing is more inspiring than the dawn of the new console generation. We know you expect the next generation of consoles to set new standards in graphical power and processing speed, converging together in games that look incredible and feel alive. This will be defined by the worlds that are visually astounding and immediately immersive, with innovative leaps in CPU, GPU, and storage technology to give you frictionless access to new stories and new creators constantly. We've been using the Xbox Series X in our internal take-home programs and are energized by the feedback we are receiving. At Xbox, we value being open and transparent with you, and I'm proud to be able to share details about some of the technologies we're enabling for the next generation and look forward to boldly sharing more as we head towards E3. Now, I'm going to stop right there, because one of the biggest aspects of this article and today's podcast is the fact that we have official confirmation from the head of Xbox that the new console, the Xbox Series X, is in fact 12 teraflops of power. Now, Zemi, I did a lot of reading. We did a lot of talking prior to going live on today's show. My question to you is, how important is the confirmation from the head of Xbox of the 12 teraflops that has only up until this point been rumored?
I mean, yeah, it's huge. I mean, any confirmation about anything with these consoles is definitely huge. But to finally get that number kind of written in stone for all of us to see and all of us to know, and we, can kind of, completely disregard the rumors that were maybe saying it was less, maybe, whatever it may be. We now know that it's, it's written down that it is in fact 12 teraflops. So I think it's definitely huge to finally be able to set aside a lot of these rumors and now actually be talking about about facts.
Well, first of all, let me thank Smitty Smith for the outstanding and very generous $5 super chat. He says, hello, everyone. Microsoft is putting a lot of pressure on Sony. Microsoft are not laying down, but instead throwing haymakers. That is very true, dude. Thank you so much for the generosity. And of course, thank you for being here. Now, as the article continues, it says a superior balance of power and speed. And it says this, compared to the previous generation, the Xbox Series X represents a superior balance of power and speed in console design, advancing on all technological fronts to deliver amazing, dynamic living worlds and minimize any aspects that can take you out of the experience. Our job at Team Xbox is to give teams the tools they need to achieve their ambitions and tap into the console's power with efficiency, a few of which we are detailing today. Raw power is just this part of the story. So here's where we get into the specs of the console. Confirmed. Next generation custom processor. The Xbox Series X is our most powerful console ever, powered by our custom designed processor, leveraging the AMD's latest Zen 2 and RDNA 2 architectures, delivering 4 times the processing power of the Xbox One and enabling developers to leverage 12 teraflops of GPU, which of course stands for graphics processing unit performance, twice that of the Xbox One X and more than 8 times the power of the original Xbox One. The Series X delivers a true generational leap in processing and graphical power with cutting-edge technologies resulting in higher frame rates, larger, more sophisticated game worlds, and an immersive experience unlike anything seen in console gaming. Now, when you hear this, Zemi, okay, again, we heard through rumors or through, different aspects that AMD was co-engineering this chip with Microsoft, and that it was going to be the latest Zen 2. We knew that already. That was confirmed. And we had heard that RDNA 2, at least in the Xbox Series X, was going to be there. Now, again, we have no idea what Sony is doing. We heard RDNA 1, but we have no information on what Sony is because they're being so silent. When you hear all of these confirmed specs, for you as a gamer, and I say that, and I'm not being facetious, folks. I say that as a gamer because I support all consoles, and Zemi himself has already talked about publicly and privately that he wants to get a PlayStation 5. So he already has a PC, and he's going to support the new Xbox. So he's going to be a multi-console gamer, just like me and many people in this chat. When you hear these confirmed specs, in your opinion, do you think that this is the boldness that Phil Spencer has been talking about? Because I'm going to be honest with you, Zemi, okay? We are 9-something months away from the console launch. Now, that could be the Xbox One and the PlayStation 5, or maybe they'll miss each other by a couple of weeks. We have no idea. But to come out with this article on an average Monday that no one expected anything, facetiously, I say line in the sand, but I don't think Phil Spencer, knowing his history, would be this bold unless he knows for an absolute effing fact that they do hold the power advantage over the PlayStation. And I think, and I'll say this again, I think Sony, their silence has hurt them, and I think they bullishly expected to be the champions without training for the next generation. But that's my opinion. Do
Mhm.
you think what I'm saying makes any sense about the boldness that Phil Spencer talked about in other interviews? Is this another aspect of that boldness?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and this is something that usually would be announced, at E3, right? And so it's also kind of taking the more untraditional approach in the sense, kind of in the same way at what they did with the video game awards, unveiling, the look of their console at the VGAs. Everything that they seem to be doing is very bold, with a lot of confidence, and they're taking a very untraditional path of how these, next gen consoles usually launch, and how we get the information and stuff. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's definitely bold. And there's a lot of confidence in it as well, and that's one thing that gets me really, really excited. If they are willing to give us this amount of information, what is it, like 107 days now until E3?
Yes,
I know you're counting down.
I'm counting down the days.
If they're willing to give us this amount of information, this amount of in-depth information about the console, what else are they holding on to? Because we know that they have a tremendous amount of stuff to talk about. Like we know that, especially, a few weeks ago they released that trailer showing off what Ninja Theory is doing and all that different stuff. And that is what they showed us was an E3 announcement. What in any other previous generation they would have shown at E3, same as this, right? So that, I agree with you. There is a lot of confidence, there's a lot of boldness. And all of this just kind of builds up to get me even more hyped and even more excited about what they're going to actually show us at E3. Because if they're showing us this now, I mean, I can't imagine what they're going to show us at E3.
Well, look, I'm going to say this. First of all, E3 is going to be a games blowout. And the reason why I think that it's going to be games, and more games for the conference that Microsoft is going to hold is simply because, now, again, folks, we got to take this with a grain of salt, and I'm not going to tell you who my source is, but I have it on good authority from multiple sources from my source, okay, that the April event that has been rumored that we're going to discuss tonight on Primetime Gaming is happening. Now, so let's just say, for shits and giggles, that on a random Monday, like today, they drop all of this Xbox Series X information, right? On December 12th, they started the hit parade going into 2020 with what we've talked about numerous times in seeing the console, seeing the updated controller, getting the official name of the console, and of course seeing a game in the form of Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. Right. And of course, we've had little drips and drabs of exciting information for Xbox. And now we have this megaton of megatons. And so let's just say we're rolling through March. March obviously starts at the end of the week. And we're going to we don't know when in April. And I would imagine that invites to the press are going to be going out probably towards the end of March. And that's going to make news. That's going to make news. Someone's going to post the invite. There's no doubt about it. And from what my source has told me is that it's going to be held on the Microsoft campus in Redmond, which makes sense because it would be a controlled event. And they would invite who they want. It would be invitation only, and it's on the Microsoft campus, which makes sense. Now you say to yourself, well, with all the information that they have now, how crazy could this April event be? But you know what? I'm going to save that for tonight's show. I'm just kind of just throwing out the bait to get people to come back this evening on what we're going to discuss. But let me continue on with the article where it breaks down some really good technical information. Now, they talk about variable rate shading, or VRS. And according to the article, it says our patented form of VRS empowers developers to more efficiently utilize the full power of the Xbox Series X rather than spending GPU cycles uniformly to every single pixel on screen. They can prioritize individual effects on specific game characters or important environmental objects. This technique results in more stable frame rates and higher resolution with no impact to the final image quality. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Hardware accelerated DirectX ray tracing. Now, we knew it had hardware ray tracing, but I don't recall reading anywhere where they said it's DirectX ray tracing. Now, if I missed that, that's shame on me. And this is what it says. You can expect more dynamic and realistic environments powered by hardware accelerated DirectX ray tracing, a first on console gaming. This means true to life lighting, accurate reflections, and realistic acoustics in real time as you explore the game world. Now, Zemi, when you hear about VRS, when you hear about the confirmed DirectX ray tracing, what are your thoughts on the power behind this monster?
I mean, more frames, right? More frames while playing your games and bigger, more detailed open world environments. I mean, it just gets me excited. I mean, I'm not a huge tech geek where I could like really know what VRS.
Yeah, I tune into the dealers and Colt Eastwood to get this. Yeah,
absolutely, and they're definitely going to do a heck of a lot better of a job than I think either of us could ever do.
Absolutely.
But what I basically get from it is that we're going to be able to be more immersed into the worlds that we get to visit, right? I mean, I think I've made this clear 1,000 times, but I'm huge into story. Story is one of the biggest aspects for me enjoying a video game. But what works hand in hand with stories is the graphics, is making you believe that you're really in that world. And I think what ray tracing is going to do, which is previously not been available on most of this hasn't been available on on consoles. It's going to make the worlds bigger, larger, more well detailed, and just more realistic and immersive. And I think that that's really what they're shooting for. And it's bridging the gap in between what we've seen possible in PC gaming versus what we've seen previously possible on console gaming. And I think it should have a lot of people excited. I mean, just recently I started playing a lot more on my computer. I have an Xbox, just like a base model Xbox One, and I've been playing on my computer that has like a 590 graphics card, which is, actually surprisingly to me, tremendously a lot better than what my Xbox, my base model Xbox One can offer. And I'm blown away by how well the graphics look on my $200 graphics card. I can't wait or possibly really even imagine what it's going to look like whenever we get onto the Xbox Series X with the 12 teraflops. It's, a lot of people are talking about it having the power of a 2080. I think it was specifically said that it's going to be 2 times the power of the Xbox One X. And that just blows my mind. And it just gets me really, really excited for what's coming.
Well, look, I want to say this before I get into my point. I have to thank Spider-Man for the $2 super chat. And he says, in the world of K. David, get your teraflops out. And I think he's talking about King David, who once again shocked and awed the audience on this week's Iron Lord podcast. I'm sorry that King David could not be here as a part of this. And I don't know if he's listening, but King David, send me a message if you're able to join, because I will immediately send you the link. But, the thing is, what's interesting, and I think what is exciting, is if you remember when the Xbox One X was announced with the 6 teraflops, there were every Tom, Dick, and Harry, the elitists of the PC master race, calling foul, right? That they could build their own Xbox. Xbox One X for $500, and it was a fun topic to talk about on podcasts, and it obviously never came to fruition. And I think the closest that I recall it getting to was just under $800, and that was without the Microsoft operating system, which in itself is usually $200 or $300. So when obviously, and I'm speaking to this PC master race. Obviously, a lot of what we're talking about now, the elitists, if you will, have like for instance, Deal Gaming has a monster rig. Colt Eastwood has a monster rig. Mooch has a monster rig. He doesn't even use it. They're our very good friend Enrique from the Basement Radio Arcade podcast has a monster rig that he's very proud of. So a lot of these, these jargons that we're talking about on today's episode, you already may be accustomed to, right? Because obviously with the PC, you can do your upgrades as you can afford them, or see fit, or both, right? Whereas a regular gamer, right? A regular gamer like myself who's had a gaming PC in an Alienware a couple of years ago, never used it to its advantage, because I've always been I'm the old dog in the room. I get it. I've been gaming since '78, so I've always played on console. So I have really, even if someone bought me, said, hey, boom, listen, here's a $3,000 rig for you, I would say that's great of you. That's very generous, but I don't necessarily need it. It's going to sit here and collect dust, because I would rather play sitting on my couch on my 65-inch OLED. That's just me. But anyway, getting back to the article, it continues with this. Immersion in an instant. The next console generation will be defined by more playing and less waiting. And when play begins, we know many gamers demand ultra low latency to be as immersed and precise as possible. To this end, the team analyzed every step between player and game, from controller to console, from console to display, and asked how we could make it faster. The SSD storage, with our next generation SSD, nearly every aspect of playing games is improved. Game worlds are larger, more dynamic, and load in a flash, and fast travel is just that, fast. Quick resume, they talk about. The new quick resume features lets you continue multiple games from a suspended state almost instantly with no waiting, returning you to where you were and what you were doing without waiting through long loading screens. Now, Zemi, I'm going to say this. Even with the Xbox One X, my God, sometimes the waiting, I could knit yarn if I had the skill. And obviously, one of the big aspects of having the SSD storage in these consoles is pushing the envelope of getting you back into your game faster. And like I said, I don't think anyone's ever did a study on this, but the amount of waiting that normally occurs when you load up your Xbox, your OG, the old fatback Xbox One, the S or the X, man, it's years coming off of your life that you can never get back, right? Yeah. So this new information excites me. But for you, is this an exciting time to upgrade to an Xbox Series X?
Oh, absolutely. I think that this SSD, for a lot of players, it kind of goes over their head. They may not realize how big of a game changer that having this SSD really is going to be. But, I've encountered loading screens so long I could have went downstairs and made a cup of coffee, and came upstairs and be halfway done, eating my bagel, before it's over, right? I've experienced some really long loading screens. And what you said there was perfect, in the sense that, how much of your time are you dedicating to these loading screens? Because I haven't seen a specific study talking about loading screens in games, but I think we've all seen those studies talking about at red lights, while driving through traffic, how much time, is that taking off of I guess your life or whatever? How much time are you wasting at that specific stoplight? And, I think it's very similar to loading screens, at least with, a lot of gamers. So I think it's going to be huge. And one game in particular, I really cannot wait to do this. And the game, I mean, it has decent, loading screens, nothing like Grand Theft Auto level. But it's like the new Elder Scrolls whenever that releases later on this generation, because, like I said, immersion is super, super important to me. And sitting at a loading screen with a 3D model of something in game, like turning around and giving you some bland instructions on the screen of something that you already know, like it completely pulls you out of the game. And in some ways, I find myself like quitting out of the game because I'm at the loading screen so long, and I'd rather go do something else because I'm getting bored. Right. So, the SSD is going to have a huge, huge, huge impact on this next generation and for gamers as a whole. I don't think, this is something that, once you experience it, I don't think anyone could really ever go back, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Now, the article talks about something that, again, folks, I'm just reading verbatim. I don't have the technical knowledge of a dealer or a cult. Those are my two main go-to guys. So they talk about dynamic latency input, DLI. And according to the article, it says we are optimizing latency in the player to console pipeline, starting with our Xbox wireless controller, which leverages our high bandwidth proprietary wireless communication protocol when connected to the console. With DLI, or dynamic latency input, a new feature which synchronizes input immediately with what is displayed, controls are even more precise and responsive. Now, that is a big deal because latency is something that could ruin, for instance, like you can't afford to have latency in a Twitch shooter or a fighting game. And obviously, the fact that is being brought up to, not only that it was brought up in the article, but the fact that it's being put in, being highlighted, is a big deal. What are your thoughts on the dynamic latency input?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I have no idea how it works, but I mean, latency is a huge thing in video games, especially with like online shooters. I mean, that's a huge reason why a lot of people, a lot of professional gamers play on monitors, is because they have, quicker response times on a monitor than what they could get on, usually on, on like a television. And with this being said, I mean, there's still going to be latency because everybody has, different internet and, servers, maybe, may have way too many people on them, so there's still going to be latency like in online games. But what this is saying is, is like latency for, I guess, like single player games or just, I mean, and then also, I guess, in multiplayer games, whenever you push up on your analog, you instantly get to see that action being taken place on the screen, which is super important. I mean, latency has always been one of those things that a lot of gamers don't really think about, but it has huge, huge, huge impacts on their game. So it's very exciting. I don't know, how big of a difference it really is going to be until I actually see it on my screen. I think that's, I think that rings true with a lot of the stuff that they actually announced today in that article, but nonetheless, I'm very excited for it.
Real quick, I just have to thank a couple of people. First of all, Alan Savage. Hey, dude, thank you so much for being here. He drops a $5 super chat, and he says this: 12 teraflops is great news, but I need to see the 12 teraflops put into use. Sony did a great job showing that with a less powerful console this gen. And that's the truth. Listen, you can't take away what the Houdinis at the Sony's first parties have done. Right? I mean, like, even on the vanilla PlayStation 4, God of War still looked and played amazing, right? Uncharted 4 still looked and played amazing. So I agree that, yes, 12 teraflops is great news. I have a funny feeling, dude, that we are not going to have a problem seeing the next gen hardware run next gen games like Halo Infinite, like Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2, or even the next Forza Motorsport 8. I have to thank, of course, Robert Jones. Hey, dude, thank you so much for being here. He drops an extremely generous $25 super chat, and he says this: What a day. Game one buy. Or see the Game Pass pick. Some new hints at games there. Wow. Yeah, listen, Game Pass is going to be such a big deal for Microsoft moving forward, especially when they're trying to sell this console to the casual market. Oh my dude, let me tell you something. Game Pass, like I said it all the time, is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And following up that, Valette Alulu drops a $5 super chat. Thank you so much for being here, and also your generosity. They say, did you know that you can get 2 or 3 no bezel monitors for your rig? Stop blaming monitors for your console gaming. LOL. I mean, look, I get it. Trust me when I tell you, I absolutely get it. But I've never been a PC gaming guy. It's just not my thing. Eagles fan 76 drops a $2 super chat, and he says it's so annoying seeing the trolling going on. Look, let me just address this for a second. You know, normally I'm unicorns and rainbows all day long, right? That's just me. It's been like that when I was a cop. It's been like that when I'm a civilian, and I think just being a good guy is the right is the right thing to do. What annoys me, and I think what aggravates a lot of people in the community, is when some a-hole, who I'm not going to call out because I don't like name shaming. I don't like to do that. That's wrong. Comes to someone's show, and you know this is an exciting time for Xbox fans. So my question is, why be a dick? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, do you have that small of a life that you have to go out of your way to shit on someone's sunshine because Xbox gamers are excited? That's my question. And if you are a part of that community, my God, you should really look in the mirror and ask what you're doing with your life, because no one, and again, I said this publicly the other day, the 3 consoles have toxic communities that I completely stay away from. All 3 of them do. Now, the Nintendo side of it, it's like seeing the Yeti or the Loch Ness Monster. It's not really there, but it's there. Whereas the Xbox has it. They have their extremists. And of course, the Sony people have their extremists. And I stay away from that. But man, be happy in life. You know what I'm saying? If the Xbox community is cheering, why don't you just throw confetti at them and say, I'm happy for you, because you know what? This generation didn't go the way we thought it was going to go. So that's all I want to say. I don't want to pull away too much from the 425 people that are watching.
Can I add something to the latency?
Please, by all means.
Yeah, so I actually thought about this actually as I was sitting here. So, you know, like whenever I say playing on a monitor, I mean, you can play on a monitor on your Xbox, and that's actually what I do. I actually switched like probably 4 years ago, and it's to the point where I actually really, for me personally, cannot play on a television because of the, the television has more milliseconds, to put the image on the screen for you. But one thing that was actually really interesting is whenever I first started playing The Witcher, I played it on my monitor. And, The Witcher is a fantastic game, but I started thinking, I wonder how it would look different if I played it on my TV. So I switched over to my TV and I was playing Witcher. And I immediately, like, I was struggling to kill things I otherwise, would be killing on the monitor a lot easier. It didn't feel as smooth. It just felt really, really slow and kind of droggy, right? So with that hardware latency, basically making it when you do press A on your controller, it instantly happens or semi-instantly happens on the screen, it is going to be a really, really huge thing. And I just actually thought about that, just thinking about, the 5 millisecond response time on my monitor versus the 20 millisecond response time on my television. 15 milliseconds makes a huge, huge difference of latency. So I just wanted to add that in.
Real quick, Ape 2020 drops a $2 super chat, and he says Cyberpunk will use smart delivery. Hope others do. Now I'm going to talk about what the smart delivery, but I want to continue with the in the format the article was written. They talk about HDMI 2.1 innovation. We've partnered with HDMI Forum and TV manufacturers to enable the best gaming experience through features such as auto low latency, which is the ALLM, or variable refresh rates, VRR. And according to the article, ALLM allows Xbox One and Xbox Series X to automatically set the connected display to the lowest latency mode. VRR synchronizes the display refresh rate to the game's frame rate, maintaining smooth visuals without tearing, ensuring minimal lag and the most responsive gaming experience. Now, they're saying here that this console, the Series X, offers 120 frames per second support. And with support of up to 120 frames per second, the Xbox Series X allows developers to exceed standard 60 FPS output in favor of the heightened realism or fast-paced action. Now, the next generation of compatibility, and this is pretty interesting because right now we know that the games that are backwards compatible in the Xbox 360, and the OG Xbox, all of those games will be played on the Xbox Series X. And from what I understand, all of the Xbox One games will be playable on the Xbox Series X. Now, according to the article, the benefits of the next generation console extend in every direction, bringing greater visual fidelity and improved loading speeds to our existing gaming legacy. In addition to new games, we're continuing our commitment to compatibility with the Xbox Series X and investing in technology that makes game ownership easier across generations. Our 4 generations of gaming. Our commitment to the compatibility means existing Xbox One games, including backwards compatible Xbox 360 and OG Xbox games, look and play better than ever before. Your favorite games, including titles in Xbox Game Pass, benefit from steadier frame rates, faster loading times, and improved resolution and visual fidelity, with no developer work required. Your Xbox One gaming accessories also come forward with you. Now, see why this is important and why I applaud Phil Spencer for getting out in front of this is because right now we've only heard rumors of Sony being fully backward compatible to the PlayStation 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, I'm almost positive that they've confirmed backwards compatibility for all of their PlayStation 4 games. And that makes pretty much, that's common sense thinking. Though I think they've halted the brakes on the PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2, and PlayStation 1 compatibility. Now, as a matter of fact, it's hard to say anything about the PlayStation 5 because we don't know nothing about it, right? They've been so silent. They've kept their cards so close to the vest. And the only thing that we've heard about the PlayStation 5 and Sony, for that matter, outside of the SSD and the confirmed hardware ray tracing, is that right now Sony is scrambling and having trouble with the price from that Bloomberg report. We haven't heard anything. So Phil Spencer getting out there and letting the people know that, yes, all of your old games that are currently playable on your Xbox right now will be playable on your Series X. And that is a big deal because, listen, I've seen the last couple of days, I can't tell you how many tweets and posts on social media I have seen with people blown away by Ninja Gaiden 2 on the Xbox 360 that's backwards compatible, and I think it's on Game Pass. I've seen videos, I've seen write-ups, I've seen people, posting pictures. Listen, just because it's an old game doesn't make it irrelevant. And I think that this is a big deal. Zemi, I want to get your opinion on him really focusing on the backwards compatibility on the Series X. Is it important that he did this in this article?
Absolutely. I mean, because right now we're kind of living in a world where there's some people that look at backwards compatibility as something that's not necessary, and then there's other people that are screaming from the rooftops that they want it. And I think backwards compatibility is a huge feature. I mean, you have all of these older games, and mind you, some people may not be interested in playing a lot of these older games, but you have a lot of people that are, so many so that, it is a feature that people talk about, probably every single day. So it's absolutely important. You spend, X amount of dollars, on these games, 60, 30, 20, however much it may be. Whenever you go and buy that next gen console, you want it to have all the features that you could, that you could ever possibly imagine. And one of those very important features is to ensure that the money that you spent on all of those other previous generations is not going to go to waste. Not everyone has has an entertainment stand that they want to put 4 different consoles on, just to be able to play all the different games. Not everyone has those older consoles. Consoles unfortunately break, and rather than going to eBay and trying to scrounge up an old Xbox original console or an Xbox 360 or whatever it may be, well, you could actually probably go to GameStop to get a 360 still. But it's just so much more convenient to be able to play those older games that you love on your newer hardware. And this newer hardware, if I'm not mistaken, is actually going to make these games play and look better than they ever did before as well. So there's that added benefit, in addition to that. And then also, just kind of touching, on what you actually, talked before, backwards compatibility, the 120 frames per second.
That's a big deal.
I think that's huge, because we this is finally confirmation from Phil's mouth that there is going to be the possibility of 120 frames per second. And that really excites me to figure out how exactly they're going to do it, because I don't really think on like a huge, and I hate to use the term, but AAA title, I don't think that they're going to be able to do 120 frames, with 4K. So I'm really interested to see if they're going to give you the option to drop it down to 1440 at 120 frames, or if it's only going to be, or if 120 frames is only going to be available on like maybe smaller, less graphically demanding indie titles. Yeah, I mean, but I mean, ultimately, I think backwards compatibility is huge, and the confirmation of 120 frames is huge as well.
Well, I mean, I think that one of the games that were hinted at running at 120 frames per second has been Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is going to be, listen, folks, I get maybe hand-drawn, side-scrolling Metrovanias aren't your thing. I hear you. I'm not going to argue with you. Everyone's taste is different. But that game not only is already looking like a genre-defining masterpiece, I'm telling you right now, as great as The Last of Us is going to be, as great as Halo Infinite is going to be, and absolutely how great Cyberpunk 2077, those 3 monsters, those 3, you can even consider them quadruple A titles. I guarantee you, Ori and the Will of the Wisps is going to be in that conversation for Game of the Year in that order with those monsters. And if they get this some bitch running at 120 frames per second, even though it's side-scrolling, flat 2D art, that is going to be the trick pony. But I want to talk about the next part of the article that someone had mentioned a little while ago that dropped a super chat. The smart delivery system. This technology, according to the article, empowers you to buy a game once, and you know that whether you're playing it on the Xbox One or the Xbox Series X, you are getting the right version of that game on whatever Xbox you are playing on. We're making the commitment to use smart delivery on all of our exclusive Xbox Game Studio titles, including Halo Infinite, ensuring you only have to purchase a title once in order to play the best available version of whichever Xbox console they choose to play on. This technology is available for all developers and publishers, and they can choose to use it for their titles that will be released on the Xbox One first and then come to the Series X later. When you hear this confirmed by Phil Spencer about the use of smart delivery, does that get you excited that they're putting the customer first?
Yeah, you know what it really shouts out to me is this is a console that's being made for gamers, gamers first and foremost, not necessarily executives first and foremost, because I think we've all been in that situation where we end up having to buy the same game multiple times for really no good reason, right? We're not changing, major platforms. We're not going from Xbox to PlayStation or Xbox to PC or, vice versa, back and forwards. We're just going from the previous hardware to the next generation hardware, and we have to buy, that brand new game. And of course, not every single developer is going to adopt to take this. This is just a feature that, Xbox is putting out there for developers to use. But we recently heard the great news that Cyberpunk, CD Projekt Red is going to be using that. What's it called again?
Smart delivery.
The smart delivery system, which is fantastic, and hopefully that leads to a ton of other major developers and publishers using this feature as well. Because I whenever we talk about Grand Theft Auto, you always like to joke about how you probably bought it 4 times and you didn't even realize it, right? And
yes,
a major
yes,
and a major portion of that was that if you had to rebuy it for the Xbox One if you if you bought it for the 360, which this is just an absolutely amazing consumer friendly decision that they're doing this, and it should be nothing but applaud.
Look, let me just say this: the story that Zemi is talking about, we're going to be breaking down in more specifics this evening on tonight's Primetime Gaming, where Cyberpunk 2077 developers, obviously we know them as CD Projekt Red, has confirmed not only the use of the smart delivery for the big game coming out at the end of the year, but that they have huge plans for a Series X edition, meaning that it's going to probably run the best. Just imagine that for a second, right? We know that they have the marketing deal. We know that it's coming out, I believe, is it September, Zemi?
What is?
Cyberpunk 2077.
I believe so, yeah.
All right, so hypothetically, it comes out, I believe, in September. And again, this is all hypothetical. This is just my opinion. I'm just painting a nice picture for you with a bunch of happy trees. And no, I don't have an afro. Okay. So it comes out in September. We're all going to be playing it on the X. That's probably where it's going to be playing the best up until, of course, the Series X releases. Now, we have heard rumors that Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be in Game Pass. Now, I don't necessarily think it's going to be day one, though that would be dope. I think the way they're going to have it set up is that when the Series X launches in November, whenever that is, I'm calling it now, I think November 17th sounds like about a good day for the X to release, the Series X to release. That one of the highlights outside of Forza Motorsport 8, Halo Infinite, and the possibility of Senua Saga, which I still think is a launch title, folks, along with whatever other surprises they're going to have. I think to lead the charge on selling you not only the console, but getting you into the Xbox Game Pass is that Cyberpunk is going to be one of the big November games released the same day that the Series X goes into full public consumption. And I like the fact that CD Projekt Red, who is one of the best developers in the gaming business, but also the most consumer friendly, is already getting ahead of this and telling you, yes, we already have plans for the Series X version. And this completely poo-poos all of the bullshit that you've been reading on these forums on how these AAA developers are going to go for the lower common denominator and not put out all these stops for the Series X being the most powerful. I like that. I really, really get behind that. And you know what? Listen, let me just say this: this smart delivery thing that we're the system that Microsoft is really pushing the envelope on is just continues to prove how incredibly amazing this company is and how consumer friendly they continue to be. Obviously, putting the gamer at the center of everything Xbox, and that cannot be denied. Now, he continues in the article saying that with the Xbox Game Pass, in addition to games from across 4 generations of consoles, our leading games subscription service, the Xbox Game Pass, will continue to have our first-party games like Halo Infinite included at their launch. We look forward to millions of you experiencing the Xbox Game Pass portfolio and immersing yourselves in a deep library of high-quality games, playing those you love now and also discovering your next great adventure. Now, Zemi, I don't think this is going to come off as a big surprise for either of us, but doesn't it seem like he really, when I say he, Phil Spencer really set the dominoes up to kind of make a spectacular splash when the Series X comes out, because Game Pass is going to be leading the charge. And if what we've heard from the so-called forums that there's going to be anywhere between a 1 to 3 month pass for all console owners, man, I mean that's just imagine if you're not an Xbox owner, right? You don't have Xbox Game Pass. Let's say, for instance, you're one of the 30 million that our very good friend Gaming Forte continuously says about that left the Xbox 360 era to go to the PlayStation era for price and power. Those 30 million, maybe not all 30 million are going to be coming back, but maybe a good chunk of that 30 million that he talks about comes back. And if you are a day one buyer of the Xbox Series X and you don't have Game Pass, imagine that all you have to do is have enough money to buy your console, and every launch game is there for the price of free. How big of a deal is that, Zemi?
I mean, it's a huge deal, and that's not to say that that estimated number of 30 million people who left the Xbox platform, are all going to come back. I mean, it's not saying that, but it definitely gives a lot of gamers, something to think about. Whenever looking at the pros and the cons to buying a PS5 to buying a Xbox Series X, it gives people a really, really, really strong, I guess, like motivation to really take a deep look at Xbox because of the value that they are offering their consumers now. I mean, Xbox Game Pass is the best thing that's came since the best thing that has been invented since sliced bread, right? I think you've said that several times.
Yes,
and
one of my favorite sayings.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's true. It really is. The amount of value that you get for $10 a month, access to 200 plus games, Xbox first party games, day and date. I mean, it is a huge, huge value. And I'm one of the people that definitely agree with that rumor that with the Xbox Series X coming bundled in, instead of you getting a game like traditionally what would be given, you
have access to 200 games.
They're going to give you access to 200 games for 3 months, a month, however long it is. And I think you're going to see the membership level of Xbox Game Pass skyrocket come this next generation, because there are still a lot of people on the Xbox platform that have no idea what Xbox Game Pass is. They see it every single day on their dashboard, but they don't click on it. And that code I think is going to introduce a lot of people to that service. And everything that Xbox has done these last couple of years has all been planning to come to this moment. Xbox Game Pass is meant to work with the new consoles the same way that it's going to work with xCloud, I would imagine. Everything that they've built up has all been being planned for this moment, for it all to come together for one of the best experiences, of gaming that's ever been. And so I think it makes a heck of a lot of sense for them to bundle, Xbox Game Pass in there. And I think it, obviously it's a rumor now, but I mean, this is like one of those things. It's almost too good for it to be a rumor. It's almost like it should already be a fact by now. But I think Game Pass is gonna turn a lot of heads for a lot of people on the other aisle that left Xbox this generation. I think it's going to give a lot of people a lot of reasons to possibly come back.
Well, look, let me continue with the article, because I had said it a few minutes ago, but before I do, I have to thank JD Gamer. First of all, JD Gamer, thank you so much for being here, dude. Really super appreciate your generosity. He drops several $5 super chats, so I want to read them in order. And this one, I had to mute my mic because it made me laugh out loud. He says this: Phil Dominus stepped on stage, cracked a crooked smile, unzipped, allowing the world to see his black monolith, and said 12 teraflops, and then dropped the mic. Then he drops another one, and he says, smart delivery is a shot at Sony because rumor has it they were going to charge for patches. This is how you share a game's moment. Yeah, I mean, listen, look, I'm going to tell you this. I don't know what the heck is going on at Sony. Listen, I've said this before, and this is not me poking fun at Sony. They're the market leader for a reason. I take nothing away from them. But as a gamer, right, you got to be scratching your head. Like, what the hell are they doing at Sony? But as a Sony player, as a Sony flag waver, which is okay to do, that's your brand, you know what? I give you a standing golf clap. No problem. But if you are one of these folks, you got to be worried. You got to be concerned. And listen, look, I keep hearing that, well, they have 3 big games coming out. They don't have to do anything. Sure, The Last of Us 2 is going to be great. Ghost of Tsushima is going to be great. Final Fantasy VII is an exclusive for a year. I'm buying it. I'm going to beat it twice. I'm going to play it on the PlayStation 4, and then I'm going to play it on the Xbox when it comes out a year later. And, of course, Neo 2 is exclusive. That comes out, I believe, next month. That's going to be a big game, but it's also a niche title. Let's call it like it is. It's a Dark Souls-type game. It's hard as balls, and they're probably going to sell about 1.5 million copies, maybe 2. And I'm going to buy it. I'm one of them because I love Neo 1. But I keep hearing that they don't have to do anything because they're the market leader. They sold 109 million consoles. Boom. What the hell are you talking about? But the more silent they are, the more chances they are opening the door for Microsoft to take over next generation. And today is a perfect example of what could be done with a single post. Okay? The internet has officially broken open. And as we close in on a record-breaking 500 people live in the chat, which is giving me goosebumps, just saying, saying out loud, just proves how many Xbox gamers are excited and cannot wait for next generation. And this same excitement could not be said for the Sony brand right now when you are talking about next generation. I don't want to hear about the PlayStation 4. We know what's coming. We know how many consoles they sold. That's a moot point at this, to say out loud. It's already a moot point. So let it go. We know they have good big games coming out. We're talking next generation. Why? Because Microsoft is talking next generation. And quite frankly, it seems as if Sony is scrambling when talking about next generation. But let me continue with the article. It says this: a generation with players at the center. Xbox Series X is our fastest, most powerful console ever, designed for a console generation that has you at the center. This means high fidelity gaming experience enclosed in a quiet and bold design. Quiet, that's a big part. Remember, you don't want these things sounding like jet engines, right? With the ability to discover thousands of games across 4 generations, all with more playing and less waiting. Whether it's empowering our amazing creators at our 15 Xbox game studios, fueling game discovery with Xbox Game Pass, or expanding on what and where you can play with Project xCloud, Team Xbox stands for frictionless pathways between players and the best experience our remarkable art form has to offer. Xbox Series X represents that same commitment for players who want immediate immersion in games that also look and feel better than ever. We cannot wait to share more details about about the new Xbox with you in the coming months. Now, this, my friends, is where we're going to get into the nitty gritty of this particular post because, like I said earlier, the April event is happening. Now, if I'm wrong and my sources are wrong, I will take full responsibility for being a boob and saying it live on the air. Zero problems with that. But right now, Microsoft, more specifically Phil Spencer, whether you want to freaking admit it or not, has his boot on the neck of Sony. And maybe I'm being too facetious. Maybe I'm being overhyped. In fact, maybe I'm just being an asshole. And if that's the case, I apologize in advance. But you have to admit what he's doing, how calculated he has been in the last couple of months since that December 12th reveal has been nothing short of spectacular. Now, Zemi, when you hear about him, and again, this was a long post. This was a lot to talk about. I'm glad I broke it down the way we did. But the last piece, we can't wait to share more details about the new Xbox with you in coming months. He could have easily said, we can't wait to share it, and we'll see you at E3. This proves to me that not only is that Xbox event real, we're going to get new information possibly in the next 30 to 45 days. What are your thoughts on how he closed out this post on Xbox Wire?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, the last 2 paragraphs, as you were reading, I was just sitting here imagining myself as like a Scotsman sitting on a battlefield with Phil Dominus, just walking up or riding his horse back and forth, just delivering like a battle speech. You know what I mean? I mean, it was, I don't know. It's something that I think will put a smile on a lot of Xbox players, faces, and it's kind of giving gamers exactly what they want, But I guess specifically talking about that final sentence, that closing statement. Yeah, I don't know about the event in April. I don't know. I hope it happens. But I think if nothing else, that it definitely says that they're going to continue doing what they have been doing these past 2 months, and that is, they're going to give us even more information before E3. Maybe it will be at an event in April. Maybe it won't be. Maybe it will be, in another article like what they did here. Maybe it will be with like a trailer they dropped, kind of similar to what they did with Ninja Theory. But I think if nothing else, it definitely states that they are going to be giving us even more information before they step out on stage at E3, which, I kind of opened the podcast up with that idea that, if they're sharing this with us right now, I cannot wait to see what they're going to show us at E3. But I guess it also kind of adds in at, what they're going to show us in the next couple of months running up until E3. Because once again, what they have been showing us is very untraditional. It's what we usually would see at an E3 announcement, if I'm not mistaken.
Great point.
And that they're sharing this huge information with us now. I mean, it just blows my mind what we're going to get at E3. It really does.
Well, look, I have to thank JD Gamer once again, who drops an additional $5 and very generous super chat. And he says this, and I want to elaborate on what he says. He says, Sony is acting like they did when they found out the Scorpio, or the Xbox One X, was 6 teraflops. Silence, he says. Let me just go back to it. I just scrolled. It says, and then a specs reveal just over a month before releasing it. Now, he brings up a great point, because if you recall the E3, which I believe was E3 2017, where Phil Spencer got on the stage and he talked about the Xbox S version, and then talked about the X, completely took everyone by the surprise. But the following year, which was E3 2018, obviously, Sony was supposed to show off what the PS4 Pro, and they backed away from it. They backed away from showing it. They pulled that event. It shocked a lot of people. As a matter of fact, if I recall, it looked like they were scrambling even when they were doing their show, because that was supposed to be there at the event. It was supposed to be a highlight of their E3, and it wasn't, because we had the confirmation that the Xbox One X was superior to the Pro in every way, shape, or form. And JD brings up a great point that, I mean, think about this for a second. Again, you can take the Bloomberg report and say it's garbage. You don't trust it. Who's Bloomberg? Well, they're only one of the biggest financial reporting and papers this side of the world, right? So if you believe it, great. If you don't, okay, I'm not going to try and, shove it down your throat. But the fact that it was put out there that they're scrambling with price, and the fact that the CFO of Sony came out and said, right now we're at a wait and see position, and we want to see what Microsoft is going to do, goes to tell you that they are in a bit of they're in a bit of a pickle. Because I have a great feeling. Now, again, we have to. This is not just Boom's take on it. Phil Spencer said that the Xbox Series X would not be, and these are his exact words, out of position in price or power. He said that. That comes from Phil Spencer. Now, we haven't heard much about price and power from Sony, and there's a good chance. And I will put money on it that the Xbox Series X does launch at $500. And that's going to put Sony in a bit of a pickle once again, because we know from the report that it currently costs Sony, again, nothing is set in stone, right? Different parts could drop in price and they could lower it. But $470 without counting in shipping, manufacturing, packaging, and of course advertising, which would make that extra $30, bringing it up to about $499.99 USC, right? If Microsoft, who is in a financial position, a better financial position than Sony, to even take a small hint of a loss, if they come out at $500 and Sony's console comes out at $500, and doesn't have the same bells and whistles, folks, this is roles reversed of 2013, right? Now, again, there are going to be people that say, just a second, Boom, all of those Sony players are not going to leave their digital libraries. And I say to you, well, you are probably right on that. But we also have to take into account that, 80 million of those consoles sold, of the 109, are casual console owners. And 30 of those million, according to our very good friend and very smart businessman known as Gaming Forte, who works directly for GameStop and is in the trenches with the people, those people that bought the cool system because it was the cool system will have no problem leaving their 15 games they own digitally, because everyone thinks that you have, because they go to play to buy a new Xbox, it's because they immediately have to sell their old console and leave their digital library behind. I've said this, and we talked about this prior to going live. This generation is going to be the highest two console support we've ever seen in gaming, because the Xbox is going to offer the maximum power and the maximum dollar in regards to the X being the most powerful and the S being the casual 1440 60 FPS console. But listen, before I get out of the weeds, I have to thank a couple of people. And just PS, by the way, we just crossed 505 people watching live, which is bananas. Let me get to these super chats. Hold on just a second, because they are okay. Let's see. I'm sorry for the hold up, folks. I have to thank everybody. Smitty Smith drops an additional $5 super chat, and he says Microsoft is walking around with that Conor McGregor strut. That is true. That guy does have a bit of a strut. And Basement Radio Arcade Podcast, our very good friend Enrique says quality content will ultimately determine the success of a platform that has not changed since the Atari. Only way MS takes over next generation is if the quality of content exceeds or is on par with Sony. And listen, what he's saying is the truth, folks. Okay, right now, Sony has incredible first-party games, but I have to hearken on the fact that Microsoft understands what they did wrong. They understand that the lack of quality in their first party was blatantly their Achilles heel, besides having quite terribly the worst marketing and messaging this side of the world. Now, as I said before on numerous podcasts, Emmy, that ship has officially been turned around. And because it's such a big ship, it does take some time to turn it around. And obviously, I talk about this all the time, and I will say it again live on the air. Pre-E3 2018, Microsoft was in big trouble. Post-E3 2018, with the addition of all these studios and the new quadruple A studio in, of course, the Initiative, and everything they have done since then has proven that not only are they listening, but more importantly, they understand what they did wrong, and they will not make the same mistakes twice. So now let me just catch up over here. Hold on a sec. Oh my God, it's going so fast. Crazy Made Gaming. Thanks so much for being here, dude. Really appreciate that. He drops a $5 super chat and he says this: I wish the Welsh gamer was here. I want to hear him say, what the hell are they doing at Sony? Happy to be a part of the record-breaking show. Yes, from what we know, the Welsh gamer not only is doing much better, but will be making his grand reappearance in his chair that I've kept nice and warm for him this Thursday on the new episode of the Xbox Factor podcast. Rain G4, want to thank you so much for being here, dude, and your generosity. He drops a $5 super chat and says this. Oh my God, it's going so fast. Hold on a second. I apologize, Rain. He says Sony will be the VLAD TV revealing the PS5 specs and will be chopped into 5 episodes. I hope not, dude. Listen, I have the money already put aside for the PlayStation 5, and as soon as I could pre-order it, I can't wait. But man, I gotta tell you, they gotta release some information. This is nails on a chalkboard. LMNOPO is here. He says, first of all, he drops a $3 super chat. Thank you for being here, dude, and thank you for your generosity. He says, no. Thank you, Boom. Well, thank you, dude. I really appreciate it. And our very good friend Pixelbit G is here. Also, thank you for being here, dude, on this record-breaking episode of the Xbox Factor podcast. He drops a $5 super chat, and he says 99% of content is multiplat. If Xbox S kicks their butt out of the gate on DF head-to-heads, and he's talking about Digital Foundry, because they're going to be counting blades of grass. They always do. On head-to-heads, the casuals will take notice. Since when are multiplats not content? Look, let me just say this, Okay. I want this to be completely understood. Multiplats are the biggest portion of gaming. Okay. Now, I am not saying that exclusives don't matter. As a matter of fact, if you've been following me for as long as I've been doing YouTube, I've been banging the exclusive drum, and I will continue to bang that exclusive drum because I mean, all you have to do is look at the Nintendo Switch. My God, their exclusives are always high quality, always AAA, always work. And what do, Zemi? They sell consoles.
Yes, they do.
Okay, but I know that you've been sitting there patiently, and I know I've been talking way too much. So I got to get you in here. Okay?
No, you got to support the people who are so generous and putting in the super chats, man.
Well, let me get to your point, okay? Because Enrique brings up a good point. But in your opinion, and I want this to be completely from you, nothing that I said, nothing anyone in the chat said. I want this right from you.
Okay.
What he says is important. Yes, exclusive content matters. Quality content matters. Absolutely, 1,000% would never disagree with that. But with what Microsoft is doing with the 15 studios, how confident are you that this is not going to be a 2013 all over again?
I'm very confident that it is. I mean, I'm not 100% confident because there's always things that can mess up. People can always make mistakes. Live shows may not go the way that they wanted to. A game that they thought was going to be absolutely amazing might be a complete flop. Things can happen, right? But I am as confident as I could possibly be going into this generation that it's not going to be a repeat of 2013. I think that's probably Microsoft's and Phil's biggest fear of what could ever possibly happen. So they're doing every single thing in their power to make sure that does not happen.
Well, I mean, what you're saying makes sense. I mean, obviously, I don't think anyone could speak in absolute, and I appreciate your caution. But of course, I agree with everything you just said. But I am going to say this: if you look at what again. We have to take it all the way back to 2018. And Phil started putting, like the one thing that people don't get about Phil Spencer is that he's overseeing Xbox, right? He wants it to be great. Nobody wakes up in the morning as the head of anything and says, you know what? Number 2 is good. Number 3, F it. I don't care. We made this much money. They want to be number 1. They want to have the best console, the most powerful console. They want to have the best exclusives, and they want to have the most money coming in. Anyone that says otherwise is full of shit. I'm going to tell you that right now. So don't think for a second that Phil Spencer, the nice guy, as has been coined, is just kind of just dancing in the daisies. He wants to be number 1. He wants to put the boot down on Sony, and you know what? With everything that he's done, he's positioning the box to do that. And with 15 studios making incredible games that we have no idea how these games are going to turn out. They could all be shit for all we know. But there's a good chance that Halo Infinite is going to be genre defining. There's a good chance that Forza Motorsport is basically going to take a dump on whatever Gran Turismo comes out. I'm sorry. Polyphony is not the same company they were back in the PS3 days. They're just not. Sorry. Okay? What they're doing over at the Initiative, if it turns out to be Perfect Dark, I'm sure it's going to be genre defining. The new Fable is probably going to be genre defining. These games, even though we have no confirmation on anything but Halo at this point, are all coming. And I can tell you this. If these games turn out to be the genre-defining monsters that we all expect them to be, then they're going to give Sony a run for their money. And if both companies have high-quality, high-powered, AAA exclusive content, what is going to be the difference in what console you buy? Well, I'm going to tell you what it's going to be. It's going to be where the games run best and play best. The same way it made a difference in 2013 when Digital Foundry kept pushing on the gas about 900p versus 1080p, and the fact that there was 2 blades of grass more that made the PlayStation 4 version better. And like JD said, and he actually drops another one. So let me just get back to that real quick, Zen, before I get to your point. JD Gamer drops an additional and very generous super chat, and he says this: the content on the Wii was not better than what was on the Xbox 360 or PS3, yet it outsold them both by far. It takes more than just games to sell, and I agree with that. That's a perfect example. I mean, obviously, the Wii really, I mean, the broad scope of who the Wii was made for was someone 70 years old in an old age home that loved Wii bowling. Shit, I still love Wii bowling, by the way, to the 5-year-olds playing with their mom and dad. So it was a tremendous spectrum. Scrub Nurse drops a $5 super chat. Dude, thank you so much for being here. He says this: great show, Boom. Go like and subscribe these guys. Xbox is bringing the heat. I love how they're addressing fans and keeping the hype up. Yeah, you know what, dude? First of all, that's a great point. And that's why there's going to be a show in April, Zemi, because the hit parade continues. And that's why Xbox gamers are so excited right now. That's why there are over 500 watching this show live. Certainly not to listen to my New York voice. It's because this is a crowd of Xbox gamers who enjoy getting together, getting into a chat, and getting excited about the brand. But you know what? Obviously, we are almost an hour and 30 minutes into today's show. Is there anything in closing you'd like to add to this outstanding, record-breaking show?
I mean, not really. I mean, I'm just really excited to have that final, confirmation that these things are actually, like they actually do exist, because, on multiple shows before, it's been a lot of speculation. It's been a lot of, well, it's rumored to be 12 teraflops. It's rumored that they're going to have ray tracing or whatever. It's rumored that, this is going to happen or that's going to happen, backwards compatibility, is rumored, all this different stuff. And so we finally 100% know that, what was listed in this article is actually going to happen. It comes from, Phil Spencer's mouth himself. And so, I'm super excited about that. I'm super excited for the Xbox brand, how it's, how it's came so far from, what I call the dark days of 2013. And I love the way that the company has repositioned itself, has changed the rules of, the gaming industry to allow a lot more consumer friendly practices to come in, putting gamers first and foremost above, almost anything else. And I'm just really, really looking forward to this, to this year, to getting my hands on, my Xbox Series X. And then, of course, my PS5, whenever that drops as well. But I'm just looking forward to hearing all this, all the new news that's going to be coming out, watching gameplay of all these new games that will, be announced at E3. I really, really, really hope that that Fable is among them.
I think at this point it almost has to be. Yeah. And I'm going to be honest. I'll come out and say it right now. If we don't get a Fable for something, I don't care if it's a still shot. I don't care if it's a hypothesis. The words Fable and Next Generation must be spoken at E3 2020 at the briefing. Not as a side note. It either has to open the show or close the effing show.
Yeah, I mean, and then I remember, I think it was one of my very first episodes on the Xbox Factor podcast. I was very adamant, I need Fable 4. There should be a 4 at the end of it. At this point, I would be happy with anything. Anything Fable, it could be a prequel, it could be a sequel, it can be, a reimagining, it can be whatever it needs to be. I just want to see Fable up on that big screen at E3. So, I mean, ultimately, I think that a lot of what this article has kind of, put out there is things that we kind of have already been speculating, or that was already rumored. And I don't think really any of it comes as a huge major shock. But what I think it does do is it makes us know, that Xbox is extremely confident in what they have, and it gives us, it finally, tells us, written in stone that this is actually legitimately a thing rather than just a wild speculation that, somebody came up with on the internet. And I think that that's what this does, more than anything.
Well, you know what? Real quick, Errol Channer drops a $5 super chat. Errol, thanks so much for being here. He says this: multi-platform games are as good as exclusives these days, if not better. The new, and I think I hope I'm going to butcher it, Assetto Corsa GT3 racing game on PC is way better than Forza Gmo. Now, listen, I don't even know what that game is. Hey, it could be better for all I know. But you know what? Something came to mind as you were talking that I kind of want to just continue the show with this, because this may be another 10 minutes, folks. So if you're enjoying the show, hang out. So we may have some more information that you might find interesting. Now, the one thing that we've all known about Phil Spencer, at least prior to this new bold direction, was he was very weary about putting out information, especially with games. And that's because obviously, they were a little gun shy with what has, happened in regards to, canceling games, right? Obviously, the one by Platinum that they were doing is the big one. The Fable 4v1 one is another one. There were a lot. There were real dark times back, pre E3 2018. But for me personally, this declaration, if you will, by Phil Spencer, isn't so much that it's a shot across the bow for Sony. I think what it is it's a light put on to the Xbox community. And they're being very transparent. He said that in the article, that they're being very transparent about what they're doing, and they're putting the fan first. But what really excites me is that I don't necessarily think that Phil Spencer would come out and confirm all of these things unless he knew to his core that they beat Sony in power. Right, like the confirmation of the 12 teraflops, we've heard of it, but Phil's coming out here and saying it and confirming it for everyone tells me, this is my opinion, that he knows they beat Sony on power, and they're going to beat Sony on price. And when I say that, I don't mean they're going to come out, undercut them, and Sony's going to be $500, and then somehow or another Microsoft is going to be the magic $399. No, what I mean is they're going to come out at the same price, at $599, and basically that's how they're going to beat them in price, because you have to ask yourself as a consumer, well, wait a second. This is the less powerful console. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles that the one in my right hand has, and the price is still the same. I think I'm going to go with the other one. It's just like if you buy a car. But I want you to elaborate on that. Do you think that Phil knows that they beat them on power, and that's why he's become this bold Phil Spencer that we've all been waiting for?
Yeah, I mean, I think he has high confidence that that the Xbox Series X is going to beat the PS5 and power, and I think he knows this for probably multiple different for multiple different reasons. I mean, first and foremost, probably, due to the way that Sony has been acting, how they've been so silent, how they haven't been really talking about any of the things that they were doing. I mean, obviously, if Sony had, because Xbox, it's been heavily rumored what Xbox had, right? And now it is flat out in the open for anyone to see. But I think Sony, just like in the same ways that Microsoft, probably does, I'm sure they have a lot of inside information. I'm sure there's a lot of things that Sony's doing that they don't want Microsoft to know about that Microsoft does know. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that Microsoft is doing that they don't want Sony to know about that Sony does know. And for Sony to be so quiet and so reluctant to give out any information, not appearing at E3, canceling, multiple events, this year and last year, that just does not come out to me as a very confident company that knows that their product is better than their competition's. And so, yeah, I think Phil Spencer definitely knows that the Xbox Series X is the more powerful console. And I do think that to be true. Now, that's not saying that I think that the PlayStation is going to be severely underpowered compared to the Series X. But, you know, if you're talking about which console is the more powerful console written down on paper, I do think it's the Series X. I think Phil knows that, and I think he's using that to his advantage, which he should be. And, you know, what I think is really hurting Sony isn't the fact that they have the less powerful console. It's their reluctance to come out and talk about what they do have, you know, to all of their fans who are, you know, eagerly waiting for any little tidbit of news of what's going on, you know, with the PlayStation 5.
Well, listen, I don't think you could have put it any more elegant, to be honest with you. And I have to say this. First of all, as we cross 90 minutes, I want to thank everyone, the 513 people that came to watch this show live. Because, again, this was a spur-of-the-moment thing. I actually was doing my laundry, if you want to laugh, as this story broke. And from the laundry downstairs, I immediately started texting people to get this show put up. And I am so thrilled that I got a chance, because as a content creator, we all know that the way it works normally is we hear from a news article and we talk about it, or in an occasion you get a scoop from somebody, and to have this news break on an average Monday in the midday, and then to with little to no fanfare put this out there for the community to let you know that I was going to do this show with Zemi, and to have over 500 people come out is goosebump inciting. And I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, as a content creator who takes this shit really serious, I cannot thank you enough. And of course, I have to immediately hearken to the outstanding and literally outrageous generosity that people continue to support Double Barrel Gaming by either becoming a channel member, supporting me on Patreon, or dropping in the unbelievable generous super chats. I honestly cannot thank you enough. But Zemi, of course, I don't think I could have spoke for 90 minutes without having you in my corner as my co-host.
I wouldn't have wanted you to. You would have lost.
Yeah, I definitely would have lost the voice for sure. But listen, dude, it was a pleasure, an absolute honor to have you a part of today's record-breaking show. But more importantly, the news that came with this Xbox Wire post from Phil Spencer himself. Do me a favor, dude. You got a lot in the pipeline. Tell everyone where they can follow you on social media, but also check out your YouTube channel for some extreme content coming down the pipeline in the next coming weeks.
Well, I don't know if extreme would be the best word for it, but thank you so much. And thank you, man, for setting up the show and allowing me to hop on here and talk about, this entire, mega bomb article. It's pretty much like E3 came early, like I said earlier this show, and it's just amazingly exciting news and a lot to get excited for. So thank you so much for setting up this impromptu podcast show. But yeah, if you guys want to, definitely check out my YouTube channel. It's called Zimmy Games. I do a bunch of gaming tutorials, gaming news, reviews, just all sorts of gaming content. And then also check me out on Twitter at Zimmy Games. My DMs are always open. So, regardless of if you agreed with some of my opinions, disagreed, I always love talking to community members. So, feel free to throw me a private message in my DM, and I'll definitely respond back. We can talk about games for a little bit. I always enjoy doing that. And Boom, thank you so much, man. This was a absolutely fantastic show.
Well, listen, it was great to have you a part of it. And also this evening, we will be going live at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we're going to have Brian from Work to Game as our guest. And obviously, the talk of the town is probably going to be Xbox. I won't be doing as much talking as my panel and guests, because obviously we did the impromptu podcast today. So basically, if you're interested to hear Gaming Fortes, Cybernox, or even any of the other amazing panel members that we have on there on a weekly basis. Tempest Sun, I've been in contact with him, because we actually talk privately on a regular basis. I'm very good friends with him, and he is chomping at the bit to get to give his spiel and his opinion on what in my opinion is the biggest news of 2020. So tune in this evening. And I believe, unfortunately, Shady will not make the show. He has the flu, folks. I didn't give it to him, but somehow he got it. And we will, I believe, have another panel member. I'm working on that right now. But listen, again, I close out these shows with two little phrases that my dad taught me. Maybe they're nerdy. Maybe you like them. Maybe you don't. But they're important to me. And I'm going to close out the show like I always do with them. One, it doesn't cost anything to be nice, folks. Remember that. It doesn't cost anything to be a good guy or girl. Remember that. And also, treat others how you want to be treated. You live by those rules, and I guarantee you are going to have an awesome day. Once again, thank you so much, and we'll see you tonight on the new episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and Friends. Take care, everyone. Have a great Monday.